Thanks for that. Okay. Okay. It's funny, decision making wasn't something that I took much interest in. When I sort of first put out a shingle and said I'm going to help organisations to think, the focus I took was really sort of creativity and innovation and that sort of stuff. But what I found is a lot of my clients had the trouble making the decision to innovate. They were still stuck on that. And I had one client that would ring me all the time and they'd say, I don't know what it is that we need, but I'm thinking you're somehow part of it. And these constant phone calls would come. And they couldn't set down a date and they couldn't lock down a budget. And I thought, have you got a problem with decision making? Yes, that's it, decision making. So the first thing I ask my clients is, how do you make decisions? And there's usually this terrible silence. You know, that they're using the force or just whatever drifted into their head at the time. And I thought, well, you probably want some kind of process. So a few years ago, I set about looking for the simplest, most powerful back-of-the-envelope decision-making tools I could find. I mean, there's some really complicated ones. I'm not a complicated guy. I like things that are really quick and simple, and I can make a decision I'm going to feel okay about. And so I want to share some of the ones that I've got here today because the last 2 years have been a really difficult one for my family. We're going through a lot of change. We've got aging parents, and so we're making decisions, like big ethical, financial, legal decisions, almost on a daily basis. And I can't tell you how great it's been to be able to whip out some of these old tools that I've been flogging and go, oh my God, that actually works. It's really useful. So I'm going to show you the stuff that I find the most useful and give you a chance to have a go with your friends. So firstly, I need to make sure you've got a good working relationship with the people next to you. So if you could turn to the person on your left and say, I love what you've done with your hair. Come on. There we go. And to complete the process, if you turn to the person on the right and say, I've never seen you look this good. Excellent. Okay. Okay, the first thing I want to do is to separate decisions from choice. They're two different things. I was running one of these high-powered decision-making seminars, and a guy got up and said, well, how can I use these tools to determine who I should fall in love with or what sort of cereal I should buy? I think, oh, give me a break. That's a different thing. It's a totally different thing. And then I discovered this, what they call Buridan's donkey. And this was put together by a French philosopher years ago that said if you had a donkey, and the donkey was basically in between two equally distant and equally yummy bales of hay, how would it make a decision? And the philosopher tells the story that the donkey dies of starvation because it can't decide. Yeah? Guess what? What happens if you've got two good choices? What do? Do you need a process? Or do you just flip a freaking coin? I mean, how hard could this be? And yet I see people standing outside Burke Street freezing. They've just come out of a movie and they're going, what do you feel like, Chinese or Italian? Or, I don't know, gee, they're both good. I think I want them both. I have clients that say, I've got two really good candidates for this job. They're both great. And I'm really freaking out as to which one to go with. You know what? It's not going to matter. Yeah? So I figure, that's what?
It does to the person who doesn't get it.
Well, that's true. But I've had people say, two good job offers, two good houses, or three good options. You know what? You can't miss. So this is not a decision. And all consumerism is basically also not a decision. Whether you go for new look VAM or new improved ZAT, it doesn't really matter. I worked in advertising for a little while. I'm all better now. But there was a time, and really this is just a subjective choice. This is not a decision. You guys good with that one? And while we're at it, there are organisations who are conservative and organisations that are progressive. And the conservative guys always decide things conservatively, and the progressive people always decide things progressively. Would you agree that's also not a decision? That's just a trend. That's just the way they do things. One thing though, did you notice that if you choose a new way, if you decide to try something new, there's going to be a whole bunch of other decisions that will come after that. If you stick to the status quo, the decision was finished right then and then. Do you remember the discussion we had years ago about the Republic? We had this big discussion. What will we do with the Republic? Should we become a republic? And if so, what kind? And what country should we model it on? And will we change the currency? And what about the flag? And what's going to happen to the anthem? And who will the president be? And should it be Eddie Maguire? What if it's not Eddie Maguire? What if Eddie's not available? Well, this whole thing, this was if we change, or should we just, stick with the Queen? What do you reckon? That was the debate. If we change one thing, we're going to have to decide lots of new things. If we stick to the status quo, we don't have to think at all. Does that ring some bells? And so when I see organisations which are conservative, they're really saving themselves the trouble of if I come up with a new thing, I have to think of a whole bunch of other things beside. Every time you make a decision, it opens doors to other decisions, unless the decision is to shut the door and not even try. Does that make some sense to you guys? Okay, cool. So, making a decision is pretty much like making a cake. There is a process, time is involved, and there has to be some implements and probably some raw materials. If someone says to you, make me a decision now, it's not going to be anything worth betting on. Would you agree with that? There's an old saying, good things take time, only crap comes straight away. If you're saying, give me a decision now, now, it'll be a reaction. It won't be a decision. A decision is something that you weigh up and think about. There's an old word we used to use, deliberation. It's a lovely old word because it describes decision-making as a deliberate act. We're going to think this thing through. So here I'm only concerned with decisions that are worth thinking about. We good with that one? Yes? Cool. Okay. So we need ingredients, we need a process, we need time. What I'm looking at this morning is what kind of decisions are there? Sometimes there are decisions where you have way too many options. You've got way too many choices and that's what you're stuck with. Have you ever been there? Have you ever tried to pick a fabric or a paint colour and you've just gone, I don't know, you've got 5 different shades of pale fettuccine and you can't make up your mind which one it is and you're going mad. I'll show you how to solve that one. Is the decision a one-way decision or a two-way decision? I only care about one-way decisions. If you say, well, do you know what, I think I might try this new job. If I don't like it, I'll quit and do something else. That's not a decision worth worrying about. That's something we should just try. I'm only concerned with decisions I can't undo having done them. Is that fair? Again, I'm trying to cut down the number of things I have to think about. Is the decision single or is it daisy-chained? Am I making this decision in isolation, or once I make this decision, does it have a whole series that go with it? Is risk a factor? It almost always is. I hate risk management. I hate risk management tools. I found a really simple way to kind of give me a rough cut on risk. And also, is the decision based on a single value or multiple values? So I'm going to show you some tools on how to break that down. So let's start with this. Who's been in a situation where you just have too many things to look at? Who's done that? Okay, here's a tip from your Uncle Jace. You can only decide between 2 things at a time. Right? But if you've got a million things laid out, you're just going to go all swimmy. So my wife was doing this thing where she was trying to pick some fabric for the sofa or something, and I'd lost the will to live. I mean, this thing had gone on for such a long time. I'd looked at 500 colours of green and just couldn't tell the difference anymore. And I was talking to a friend of mine who was mad keen on football. I don't really understand how sport works, but she was trying to explain it to me for the 100th time. And I said, how do they decide who wins the grand final? Do we just go in a room and decide, I think Collingwood this year, everyone will be happy with that. Do they just decide? She said, no, there's a contest. And they play 2 teams at a time. And we see which team prevails, and then the ones that win go into the next series and the next series and the next series. I thought, oh, I know how we're going to resolve this colour problem I've got with my wife. We can figure this thing out. What we're going to do is we're going to take a series of choices and we're going to pair them up. Right? So round 1 will be, do you like the red one or the yellow one? She says, oh, well, I like the red one. Don't like the yellow one. Fine. I've already got a winner. Yeah? How about the next round? By matching them in pairs, I can say, those 2 versus those 2. That one versus that one. What do you think? And here's a no pile and here's a yes pile. Already I've got the ones that are going through to the grand final. And just to make sure I wasn't, doing any sleight of hand, I might bring some old ones out and try them again. No, still prefer that one to that one. So guess what happens? Within about 2 minutes, we've halved the thing. I already know what's still in. Well, what do we do now? We go to the semis. Same thing. Okay, let's match them. Which of these do you like? Yes, no, yes, no. And before you know it, we're at the grand final. We've got a decision. Could you use this? You break it into pairs. You don't look at a whole range of stuff. You go that versus that, that versus that, that versus that. Okay, cool. I want to talk about one-way decisions. I've put a list of one-way decisions here. Things that once you've done them, you're not going to be able to undo them. If you hire a divorce lawyer, you can't undo that. If you invade Iraq, you can't undo that. If we clone, we can't undo that. These are the ones I'm concerned about. These are the ones we should really, really think carefully about. Do you have any of these one-way decisions that you make? Probably every day. There's one big one-way decision you've got to make. This is what I'm interested in. Okay, so the first question you've got to ask yourself, is it one-way or is it two-way? Are there options available? Can I back out of this? Now, what if you could back out of it? Is there any harm in trying? Probably not. You say, you know what, we'll try this and we might learn. So if any of the options are reversible, I would take the reversible option first. Is that fair enough? I get to try, I get to learn. What's the harm? If the options are not reversible, then the next question is, are the outcomes different or the same? Am I looking at 2 or 3 things that are more or less the same, both good or bad, or am I looking at outcomes which are dramatically different? So what do I do if the outcomes are dramatically different? I can now just go pro and con, can't I? I can know why one against the other. If the outcomes are different, then obviously I go for the best outcome. That's simple, and I'll show you a process for that. It's really easy. If the outcomes are not different, if they're both good or both bad, what do? If I've got 2 good choices or 3 good choices, I flip a coin. It doesn't matter. What if both outcomes are bad? Does it make any difference? I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't. I just try to do it, yeah? I like this one though. Mae West, she said, when faced between 2 evils, I'd do the one I haven't tried before. That's pretty good, because she's going to learn something. I haven't done this one before, I will learn something. Here's a joke my dad used to use, the lesser of 2 evils. It's the only chance I get to put that up there. Okay, so let me start with a really basic, what we call Pascal's wager. This is just a 4-box decision-making tool. We have this discussion every time we leave the house. Will I take my keys? Will I need my phone? Shall I take the jumper? Will I need my credit card? Will I take your wallet? Have you had that discussion? It just drives me nuts, right? And I guess it depends on what are we talking about. Your EpiPen, your Ventolin inhaler, or your teddy bear. It really is a question of what do I need to take. So let's look at it this way. I have 2 choices. I'm going to take it or leave it, whatever that is. I also have 2 outcomes, the best and the worst. I now have 4 things to think about. Right? So what would be the best outcome if I took it? Let's say it's my jumper. I'm going to take my jumper. What's the best outcome? I stay warm. Okay, so guess what? I needed it and I had it. Does that sound good to you guys? Excellent. What's the worst outcome if I take my jumper? I didn't need it. I've got to schlep it around. I'm going to lose it, right? So that's the worst outcome. I don't need it, but I've got it. What is the worst outcome? Sorry, the best outcome if I leave the jumper at home? Didn't need it. I'm unencumbered by it. What is the worst outcome if I leave the jumper at home?
Freezing cold.
I needed it and I ain't got it. Okay, do any one of those look like a bad option to you? Which of those 4 look like the worst option? I'm thinking the bottom right-hand corner. So guess what I'm thinking? Take the damn jumper. What the hell, right? We say this when my son will go out without his Ventolin, like his inhaler. And I'll say, what would you rather have? Rather have it and not need it, or need it and not have it? That's the end of that discussion, right? Pascal used this tool to decide whether or not he should believe in God. It's a really simple tool, but let me show you on something a bit bigger. Okay, my son wants to jump out of an aeroplane. This is my only son. My 21-year-old wants to leap out of a plane while it's in the air. Like actually jump out of a plane in the air. Where's he thinking? What is he imagining? Why does this appeal to him as an idea? What's attracting him? Just give me some ideas.
Adrenaline.
It's adrenaline. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. Anything else? His friends will be impressed. It'll be very cool. What are his parents thinking? Oh my God, he's going to die. We're thinking this is the worst thing. Is he thinking about the best thing that happens if he does this? Is he thinking about the worst thing that happens if he does this? No, that's our job. We're thinking about that. It had crossed his mind, but he's gone, I don't want to... So guess what? There's 4 things to talk about. So I drag out my little pen and paper, and I'll say, right, the choices are jump or don't jump, and the outcomes are great or terrible. Let's look at 4 sides to this thing. So tell me, what's the best thing that happens if he jumps, from our perspective? Where's the benefits?
Lands safely.
He lands safely, that's a good outcome. What else would be the best outcome of him doing this? What's in it for him and for us? He becomes a confident human being. What else?
He doesn't ever need to do it again.
You know what? It'd be done. We'd get that over and done with. What else? What are some of the other benefits of him jumping out of a plane? Help me make a decision.
Risk.
Yes, so he learns to take good risks. He becomes confident. What else?
Status.
Status in what way?
Well, he's done that, so he's seen as a...
His general awesome scale has gone up. So there's a whole bunch of benefits. Would it actually be good for his development as a human being? Yeah, I think there is some good growth issues to be had there. There is some benefits. Now tell me about the worst thing that happens if he jumps.
He dies.
Parachute don't open.
Doesn't open, he dies. Thanks, Pete, that's terrific. But that's exactly right. So we're just weighing those 2 things up. There's 2 more things to talk about. What would be the best outcome if he didn't jump? He doesn't jump. What's the bit?
Parents would keep their sanity.
We would have a very comfortable afternoon drinking tea and, you know, watching West Wing and just not worrying about anything. We'd be pretty comfortable with the whole lot. Any other benefits for him not doing this? There aren't that many. How about, what's the worst thing that happens if he doesn't do this? He does something worse. Oh my God. Anything else? He'd feel a failure. Anything else?
Mates will mock him.
Oh my God. And he won't have any mates after this. Anything else? He might hate me. So, okay, what you're telling me is, if he does, there's this life-affirming personal growth. That sounds pretty good. That's worrying me a great deal. Here we have a lovely stress-free afternoon, and here he's timid and resentful and hateful and complaining to his shrink, and he's going to do something worse. These are the 4 outcomes. What should my son do? Jump. You see what happens when you weigh it up? You start to look at the whole thing. What are the odds of this happening? Really high. What are the odds of that happening? It's bugger all to the power of 10. What's the odds of that? Who cares? What are the odds of this? Really high. So guess what? Even as panicky as we are as parents, we could look at this thing and say, dude, you should jump. And it's the exact opposite of what our emotions were telling us. By looking at the whole story, we can make a much better decision. Can you see any value in this? So let's step it up a notch. We had to restructure our home loan. Oh God, it's the most boring business in the world. Do we have a fixed rate? Do we have a not fixed rate? Who's been through this? And like, oh my God, the interest rates could go up or the interest rates could go down. Oh my God, what are we going to do? The sleepless nights. Whack out the back of an envelope. Let's have a look at this again. See if I've missed something. If I fix the rate of my home loan and the rates go up, I get a good deal, don't I? Excellent. If I don't fix the rates and the rates go down, I still get a good deal. Is that right? Have I got that right? If I don't fix it and they go down. Now this is what the banker's telling me about. What he doesn't tell me about is this. If I fix the rate and the rates go down, I miss out on a bargain. Right? So far so good. Have you ever bought something and thought, I'm really happy with my purchase? And then you see it down the road for half price and you go, now I don't love it quite so much. That doesn't make any sense to me. Was it worth it then? Then it's worth it now. What's the worst thing that happens? What if the interest rates go up and I don't fix my rate? I can't afford my mortgage. Now, of those 4 scenarios, which one looks the worst to you? I'm thinking this is freaking me out. So am I prepared to lose on a good bargain and still be able to pay my mortgage? Yes. So guess what? This is a simple decision. Let's try it on something really big. Cloning. Should we clone human beings? Do you think this is a one-way decision? It is. Like, we don't put this back in the jar. Once this is out, it's out. I'd like you to work at your table now. I'd like your ideas on what would be the best thing that could happen if we clone human beings, what's the worst thing that could happen if we clone human beings, what's the best thing if we don't, what's the worst thing if we don't. Work with your team. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. Time's up. Okay. So, anybody have any ideas about all the goodness that will come if we do this? Best if we do. Who's got something? Food security. We can just keep making as much lamb and chicken as we want. Just keep popping them out. Any other good news out of this? Oh, they got all excited about food. They were off on an whole other thing. But that's okay, that's okay. What are some of the other benefits of doing this? Eliminating disease. That does sound like a good thing. What else? That's it?
But you don't eliminate disease if you clone because you would clone the disease as well.
Well, that could be either way.
See, he's got me covered there. Thanks, sir. Any other upsides to this?
You can clone again, etc.
Okay, we could make copies of good people, like the ones we like. Yeah, well, I'm going to get to Hitler. Yeah.
We only did human cloning, and we thought it would be
Well, you stuck to the brief. That's very good.
immortality and the end of sibling rivalry.
So the end of sibling rivalry, because we're all the same person, and we live forever. Okay, so are there benefits to doing this? Yes or no? Yes, there are. Okay, what would be the worst thing that would happen if we did this? Anyone see a dark side? It gets out of control. We don't have a really good track record of, oh, we think we can improve on nature. Oops, got that wrong. This would be a real problem for us. What else?
You could end up having a nuisance race,
This is true.
a nuisance society.
Yep. Sounds kind of cool, but I know where you're going with that.
The disease part can also work the other way.
Oh, I think you go from the GM crop to the zombie apocalypse. I can see how you get there. Anything else? Any other dark sides here?
Yeah, the disease part can also work the other way, that you can inbreed disease with the cloning.
Oh, special clone diseases.
Defects,
Really interesting.
Genetic defects. And
Any other downside you could see?
affect science and how science, like medical research is developing, because you would no longer be dealing with just the natural progression of the human.
Well, this is true. You could probably qualify a doctor in 30 seconds because it would be the same person turning up the whole time, not you again, you know. Any other losses to us as a culture, as a species?
Essentially, you lose humanity, you lose your strength.
Yeah, you lose a lot of the interesting aspects about us. I'm also curious about who would get to make a copy of themselves. Who gets that gig? Clive Palmer. I just want to remind you. We've already had 2 George Bushes, so I don't know whether if you want to go for a third or a fourth or a fifth. Is there any upside in not doing this? Yeah, this is the one that people don't stop to think about, but this is really interesting. What's the upside of not doing this?
You've got to think of some other answer, so you've got to continue to be creative.
Yeah, it may actually trigger greater creativity. Any other reason? Any other upside of not doing it?
We just said diversity is good.
Yeah, it is. But what about all those resources? What about all that time and energy? You guys are familiar with the idea of opportunity cost? All the stuff we could be doing if we weren't doing that. Do you reckon we could solve some more important problems? Like, I don't know, get clean water to everyone. I mean, something a little simpler that might actually have greater benefit. What do you think? Yes. Where's the downside in not doing this? Is there a downside in not doing it?
Some people will die of diseases that might otherwise be cured.
Yeah, well, all death is certain. I mean, we will all die, just about of different things.
Cloning, you won't. You'll live on.
No, but we're not doing it. You're not paying attention. See, we're not doing it. So, okay, here's what I've got. Here we get to copy great people and have a designer species and beat death. That sounds pretty good. Here we get to use the resources and to solve some probably more interesting problems. Here we've screwed up the natural order. We've made multiple copies of rich people and we're awash in Hitlers. And over here we die. Do you reckon you could make a decision based on this? Because I could.
I'd rather die.
It's pretty simple for me looking at this. In fact, if I want to be optimistic, I could say, which of those 2 yellow things do I want the most? If I'm pessimistic, I'll say, which of these 2 black things do I want to avoid the most? Either way, I can make a decision. What do you think? But when we have the discussion, you've got people who are advocating that we should do it, you have people advocating that we shouldn't do it, and it's only half the discussion. Does that make sense? Every time we have a political discussion, it'll be all the good things that happen if you vote for me, and all the bad things that happen if you vote for him. That's only half the picture. We get this all the time with organisations. They'll say, why should we develop our staff? Have you heard this question? They'll say, why should we develop our staff? What if we develop them and they leave? I'll say, what if you don't develop them and they stay? Oh my God, that is so much worse. Okay, okay, so here we go. Have you ever used like Google Maps or Navman or any of that kind of stuff? Okay, so here's my place and here's your place, and you say, show me how to get from A to B. And that's what the computer does. It goes, that's the way. Would you agree that each one of these is a decision point? Here you go left, here you go right, here you keep going straight. Does that worry the computer? Oh, so many choices. No, it simply says, where do I want to get to, and which yes-no combination do I need to get there? Does that sound right? Now, if you flip open the Melways, you realise that each one of those was a decision point. And this is how you make decisions. Start with where you want to get to. What future do I want? My destination. Now let me work backwards. What decisions do I have to make to get me there? Does that sound right? Just think of it like travelling down a road. It's the simplest way that I know. Okay. Do you sell the house? Do you buy the house? If you keep it, do you renovate it, or do you just extend it? Do you put in an extension? Would you buy? Would you sell? Where? Each one of these decisions is dependent on every other one of these decisions. When my father-in-law was slipping very quickly into dementia, we had to ask ourselves Do we let him stay at home? Do we get nursing? Do we get him to move in with us? Do we put him in care? And each one of those decisions then had subsequent decisions to be made. But it didn't matter because each time we could use the same tool. It's like Navman saying left or right. And basically once you've got the first decision right, you've already cancelled half of the other options. So we get confused when we look at our decisions like this. I have so many decisions to make. If you start to put it like a road and you can see how these decisions are slaved and daisy chained to each other, it becomes a whole lot simpler. Okay, let me show you something really complicated. What happens if I've got more than two options? Oh, bugger. Could I still look at, say, three possibilities, A, B and C? Yes, I could. A, B and C, I win or I lose. This is my thinking. In plan A, if I win it would be great, if I lose it would be sad. Plan B, it would be really good if it worked, but it would be catastrophic if it failed. Plan C would be my favourite of all if it worked, and if it didn't work, I'd be fine. Could I make a decision based on this? What's my best decision here? What do you think? Does C look good to people? Why do you like C? Because it's not B, and it's C. Right? I get what I want, and I avoid what I don't want. Is that fair enough? Aha, but Uncle Jason's got a trick for you. Oh my God, what if it's the same choice? Now we have to think about risk. What do I do if the thing that I want the most also gives me the thing that I dread the most? What are my choices here? What looks good now? I could either pick C and forego the joy and avoid the risk, or I could do some very basic risk management on the upside and downside of B. Is that right? I hate risk management, so if I can avoid it, I do. But if I really want the benefits of B, I may have to weigh up the risks of B as well. Is that fair enough? Okay, so let me do risk really fast. Has anybody here got asteroid insurance? Nobody? No one's got asteroid insurance. Why not? If we get hit by an asteroid, that's it, game over. Why haven't you got insurance? Because you think the possibilities of it are just not worth worrying about. The cost of it is enormous, but the odds of it happening are really low. Would you agree? So in that case, because the odds were low, it didn't matter that the costs were high. Is that fair? Let's do something different. Has anyone here made a fool of themselves at karaoke? Am I the only one? Okay, thank you. Thanks for your honesty. So guess what? The odds of that going wrong are what? Really high. The cost of it going wrong is really low. Would you still do it? Yeah. Of course you would. So guess what? Here's what we've got. Up the top, we have a long shot disaster. Very unlikely to happen, but if it did, oh my God. Bottom left, we have an unlikely nuisance. This is very unlikely to go wrong, and if it did, it wouldn't cost us very much. Is anybody sweating over that risk? I'm not. Over here, the guaranteed embarrassment. This is karaoke. You have a 100% chance of making a small fool of yourself. You're happy to take that risk. How about this one? Top right-hand corner. A space shuttle has 2.5 million components in it. And at 99.9% efficiency, it means at any moment, 2,500 things are going wrong. What are the chances of a space shuttle going wrong? Very high. What's the cost of it going wrong? Very high. Does that sound like anyone's idea of a good time? So I know organisations where they've actually put a version of this up in the kitchen. And they've talked about how they measure pain and how they measure odds. And everyone makes decisions based on this. If it's in that top right-hand quadrant, don't make that decision. Don't say yes, at least not without someone checking on you. But what if you said to employees or your staff, anything down in here, don't even ask me about, just go ahead and do it. Are these risks we should take? What do you think? Yes or no? Yeah, it is. And only in here do we need to have a meeting. This is all I want to know about risk management. If either of the factors are low, either the costs are low or the odds are low, I'll go for it. If both are high, I run screaming. Is that making any sense? Cool, right, good. Now I'm going to show you the hardest decision you're ever going to have to make. This is a one-way global decision. We can't undo it once we've made it. We don't know whether the information is going to be correct or not. Some of us aren't even sure it's a real thing. Let's look at climate change. It's a great example. What? But let's have a discussion about it because this is a really good example of a big decision that we can't undo and the information won't be in until after we've decided. Does that sound familiar to you? That sound like your world? You've got to do this all the time. Can you make a good decision without knowing whether something's true or not? You can. I'll show you. Let's say we had two choices. I'm just going to make this real simple. We act or we don't act, let's say. Same choice we had on Y2K, remember? Same choice. We do something or we don't do something. Do you know what the Italian response to Y2K was? Buh! They just said, what the hell? Right? Okay. Let's say that we act and it turns out that it's true. We act, it turns out that it's false. We relax, it turns out that it's true. We relax, it turns out that it's false. Would you agree there's 4 possibilities there? Okay. In fact, there's 8 futures we have to contemplate. And it's really cool because there's 8 tables here. How divine is this, right? What if we act and it turns out that this was true? Table 1, what is the best thing that could happen? That'll be your exercise. What would be the best outcome if we acted and this was true? Table 2, your challenge is this one. What if we act and it turns out that this was true? What is the worst outcome you can imagine? Table 3, what happens if we act and it turns out this was false? It was all just a lie. What's the best possible outcome? Table 4, we act and it turns out that it's false. What's the downside of that? What's the worst? Are you 4? Yeah, 4. Table 5, we relax and it's true. What's the best outcome you can think of? Table 6, we relax and it's true. What's the worst outcome? Table 7, we relax and it's false. What's the best outcome if you can imagine it? And table 8, you can see a pattern emerging here, right? We relax and it's false. What is the worst outcome? I want your best thoughts in about 2 minutes. Go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up. Can I ask, did you find it easy to talk about it? Did you find it simple to talk once we had figured out which particular slice of the scenario you were looking at? Why have we found this conversation so difficult? We're overwhelmed and we're trying to have 8 conversations at the same time. And you know what? Some people are only interested in one aspect of it. I'm interested in the whole equation. I want to see the whole picture. So by giving you a specific brief, did that simplify things for you? You could just focus on that. So it was a reasonable, measured, I didn't see anyone kind of hurling shoes or anything kind of dramatic there. So let's start with future number 1. I'm going to ask table number 1. Tell me, what is the best outcome if this is true and we did something about it?
Life on the planet survives.
That sounds pretty good. That's the Bruce Willis ending. It's nice. We saved it. We pulled this thing off. That sounds pretty good. Future 2. What's the story there?
Well, we don't do enough, so it doesn't work. We take the wrong action.
So we just kind of missed it. Just didn't quite catch it.
So the actions have unintended consequences, and possibly like social economic collapse, maybe
Okay.
totalitarianism.
It's a very exciting future you got there for us. Tell us, future number 3. We act, and it turns out that it was all bullshit. Where's the upside?
Well, we have a lot better, healthier planet anyway, and we probably develop new technologies that we could use for other efficiencies, and so we'd have unintended good consequences
Yeah.
as well.
And we did what we thought was the right thing, even though it was unnecessary. Could we live with that? I think I could live with that. You know, we just didn't burn enough coal, but that's okay. We'll live through the pain. Future number 4. We act, and it turns out it's not true. Is there a downside?
Too much change, and people weren't able to adapt to the change.
Right, and sort of economic, social, and have we talked about that a fair bit as a country? That if we do this and it's not a real thing, it's going to cost us. That's a big thing. Yeah, let's not underestimate that. That is a big thing. What about future number 5? We just kick back like the Italians, and it turns out that this was for real. Where's the upside? Yep.
We had a bit of a joke that people would start investing in inland property because it's become beachfront property.
Nice. A little bit of opportunism there. Very nice. Yep.
Spoke about the Untitled Chapter, so that's
There will be some pleasure in saying, yeah, thanks for that.
the impetus for innovation.
Yes, yeah. And you know, the other thing too is we probably really enjoyed our lifestyle right to the end there. You know, smoke them if you got them. We had a good time. We went out with a bang. Yeah. That's right. But it would be a hell of a party. Here we go. So tell me about future number 6. We relax and it's true. What's the downside? Where's 6? Where are you guys? Sorry, yeah.
We said we relax and it turns out to be true. The worst thing that could happen is that the planet becomes uninhabitable.
Right. And you say that like it's a bad thing. Like that's sounding pretty bad. Has anyone heard discussions about future number 6? Yeah, we're talking about that. In fact, very often the fight is between future 6 and future 4. We're having that argument and we're missing so much more of the argument. So tell me about future number 7. We relax and it turns out that this wasn't true. Is there an upside?
There's the opportunity cost. We've saved money, we've saved a whole bunch of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dodged a big bullet. Fantastic. I could see an outcome there. Yeah, so that's pretty good. That's good. In fact, I would love that future. I think that'd be sensational. That's my favourite. Number 8, we relax and it turns out that this was not true. What's the worst outcome here?
Not a big deal, because the worst case is that we haven't really done anything and it's not true, so there's no change.
I reckon science would have done its dash. I'm probably not going to trust another climatologist ever again. Like, yeah, guys, thanks. Thanks for getting me all worked up over nothing. So let me see if I could do a quick kind of executive summary. In future number 1, Bruce Willis, we saved the world, hooray for us. Future number 2, we kind of got to the party a little bit late. We've just mitigated it, but not really solved the problem. Future number 3, we did the right thing. We were cool. We were good. It was unnecessary, but what the hell? We can live with ourselves. Future number 4, well, we destroyed pretty much everything except the planet. That's a bummer. Future number 5, we really had a good time at the end there. Future number 6, this is death, 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 death. Future number 7, we celebrate our dumb luck. Future number 8, well, who cares, but the climatologists are done. If I was to use my Navman technique, would I be trying to figure out this end of the equation, or would I be looking at the future that I wanted and working backwards? Would I be deciding which future do I want? Which of these 8 futures do I want? And what choices do I have to make to get there? Do you reckon I could make a decision based on that? Yeah? In fact, if I was to just colour it in, 1, 2 and 7 are shiny futures. They look pretty good to me. 4 and 6 are bad futures, and 6 seems to include 4, as far as I can see. So if I was to pick a future that I wanted and work backwards, or pick the future that I don't want and work backwards, could I make a decision? Do I need to know whether this is true or not? Actually, I don't. Most decisions you make with incomplete information. This is a way of doing this. Could you use this back at the office? Are the decisions you have to make with incomplete knowledge, and there are consequences and you can't undo them? Could you work backwards from the futures you want to the decision you'd have to make today? What do you think? Kind of cool, huh? Okay. In fact, this is the Uncle Jace executive summary. I've stopped asking people who's right. I'm more interested in who can't afford to be wrong. That actually, for me, cuts to the chase a little faster. Right? Okay. Have you ever been given too many ideas, too many proposals, too many projects? Anybody here work in, the welfare sector? I mean, where you just, every time you get together, you have what we call a butcher's paper orgy, and you just come up with all these ideas and a million projects. But when you walked in, you were overworked and underfunded and under-resourced, and now you've worked out with 20 more things. Is this what you guys do? I know, I've seen you. I know most of you. This is what you do. I'm going to show you a technique for weighing up lots of projects, lots of ideas, and picking 1 or 2 that are worth doing. Would you be interested in that? Oh, who's your friend now? Okay, so I'm going to present you with, I think it's 8 concepts for new products. And I want you to give me just a gut feel. Just make a noise that makes me know how you feel about this. So, project number 1 is the hover beetle. What do you think? Gut feel? Oh, okay, it's fairly positive. Project number 2, the solar Rolex. This is a sundial on a wristwatch. Not so happy with that one. Hand dial? No. It depends on how old you are, this one. I'm looking at that thinking, that looks quite nice. Pine onion? Okay, getting a feel on that one. The alpha board, this is a keyboard in alphabetical order. This it depends on how much time you've spent learning QWERTY, right? Okay, some of us like it. The baby Victor. Ideal Father's Day gift, quality time. What's our feelings? Okay, I can see people kind of like the idea, but also we can see some social issues connected to that. And this is a video microwave player. So you can watch a cooking show while cooking what's on the cooking show while you're watching the cooking show. Feel about that one?
Yes.
Okay, and okay. So it's only 7. So here they are. I now want you to decide which of these projects you'd like to see happen. I want you to imagine I have a warehouse filled with them, ready to go. We've solved the technical problems, we've solved the legal problems, we've even solved some of the ethical issues. We've solved them. All I want you to tell me is how cool you think they would be. Which of these would you like to see happen? Which of these would you invest your own money in? Now here's the rule. As a table, you've got to agree. Right? And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. You can talk about them for a little while, but I want you to give them a number. 10 if it's the best idea you've ever seen. 0 if it's the worst idea you've ever seen. 3 if you think it's like an ideal Father's Day gift. If you think it's around about there, right? So I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers from you as a table. How would you rank them? The more cool, the more valuable you think that. Don't worry about the effort. Don't worry about how are we going to get them done. I'm not asking you that. It's already done. Which ones do you like the look of? Can you give me a number between 1 and 10 for these 7 things? Yes or no? No. Of course you can, right? Your time starts now. Did you notice that when you first start, you have this conversation about what do we value, what matters to us, what's our criteria? Really important discussion, which I want to get to in a second. But you realise after a while you go, come on, just give me a number. It's a 6, it's a 5, it's a 7. Would you agree with that? This is the only thing I ever learned about maths, that a number is worth 1,000 words. We can talk forever about, I don't think it's that good, I think it is that good, I'm not sure it's that good, I think it's a 5, I think it's a 6, done. We should be able to rough cut through lots of ideas fairly quickly based on the shared values of a group. Does that make any sense? Cool, okay. So do you believe that using this discussion, you should be able to rank ideas in terms of value? Not effort, value. Do you think you could do it? Yeah, so you now have a rough idea. We thought that was kind of good. We thought this one was not quite so good. Have you ever tried to decide something where one person's talking about how good the idea is and someone else is talking about how hard it would be to get done? How does that conversation usually go? Round and round and round. We call that moving in government circles. You actually don't get anywhere because you're having 2 different conversations. Why did I ask you to talk about value but not effort? It's for that reason. So now that you've got a rough cut idea on value, now I want the effort discussion. I told you I had a warehouse full of these. I lied. This is just cheesy Photoshop. These are just thoughts. So now the question is, how hard would they be to do? Do you think that the hover beetle might have some issues? Do you think it might be technical or legal? Are there any environmental problems? Can you see any ethical issues with the baby Victor? Do you think there's going to be questions in Parliament about the pine onion? Based on your understanding of effort, social, technical, legal, environmental, some of these are problematic. Some of these we could do tomorrow. So now I want you to park the discussion about value and I want you to have a discussion about effort. If you think it's easy, it's a 0. No sweat, get it done tomorrow. If you think this is impossible, like colonising Pluto by Thursday impossible, it's a 10. 5's tricky. So now use your reality, use that part of your brain that deals with day-to-day politics and money and all the rest of it. How hard would these things be? The harder they are, the bigger the number you've got to give them. Can you do it? Looking for a yes or a no? This is easy, this is downhill for you guys. 2 minutes, go. 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up, okay. Do you think that you could use this discussion to sort things out in terms of degrees of difficulty? What do you think? Yes or no? Yeah. Is it easier to have this discussion because someone isn't there crying about how cool it is? Yeah. That's why you quarantine the 2 discussions. Why did I want you to talk about value first? Well, I'll tell you. Because it's actually more important. Right? How often do we look at things and say, we could do that because it's easy? Wrong discussion. We should look at things that are valuable. What actually has the impact that we want to have in the world? Now let's get the best of those and find the easiest of those. Does that make any sense? So we're going for what we used to in the 80s call low-hanging fruit. Yeah? So you've got some rough agreement on value, yes? Yeah. Rough agreement on effort, yes? Now we can do this. That means that some of these ideas are high value, low effort. Does that sound good to anybody? Were there any things that you looked at in those 7 very different projects that you thought, that would be really valuable and we could do it pretty easily? Were there any? The Rolex you thought was high value? No? Oh, you're messing with me, okay. The Alpha board, you thought that was high value because every day someone who uses the QWERTY system dies and 14 people who don't know what it is are born. So I think there's a trend there, yeah? Do you reckon there's a market for a keyboard where the keys are anywhere you want them to be? I reckon. Do you reckon that's easy to do? That's a piece of cake. That's a high value, low effort idea. What would we do with that kind of idea? We would do it, wouldn't we? I mean, the only decision to make there is that looks like a good idea. Would you agree? Okay. Was there anything that you thought was high value, high effort? Great idea, but oh my God. Hover beetle. So the hover beetle is high value, high effort. Where's the value? It's very cool. Where's the effort? Technically, legally, logistically, we're going to have to train people to fly in 3 dimensions. I mean, the traffic's bad now. Like, it's going to be difficult, right? That's right. So what do we do with ideas which are high value, high effort? What's our decision there?
Don't go near them.
Hang on, don't go near them. What are the other options? Park it for the moment. Actually, let's just park and hover for the moment, yeah? So guess what? That's an idea that we would work up to, isn't it? Or it's an idea that we would scale down without trying to lose its value. Think about the work that you're doing in this sector. Most of your biggest ideas, most of your visions are high value, high effort ideas, aren't they? You want to change the world. I mean, you're not in it for the glamour, eh, or the money. It's got to be, you want to make some sort of difference. Is that a high value, high effort proposition? Do you let it go because you can't get it done by Friday? No. You work up to it or you scale it back. Okay. Down here, low value, low effort. Is anybody here ever pissed in a wetsuit? Can I just check? Anybody? 1, 2, 3. It's not relevant, I was just interested. Okay. The reason why I bring that up is if you've ever had the experience, and I can recommend it, it's simple, it's easy, it gives you a nice warm feeling. It's of questionable value to others, right? Is there any ideas that you just looked at where you say, this is easy, but who cares? Were there any? The watch. I mean, the watch, you think we could knock that up in 30 seconds, but frankly, who'd want one? Do you see that as low value, low effort? Is there anything you're currently engaged in that might be described the same way? We do this because we know how to do it, not because it's actually having an impact. Do we lose resources on those little things? If we've got hundreds of those little things, we lose a lot of resources. So what's our decision here? Low value, low effort. What should I do with that idea? I could ditch it. It's got one thing going for it though. It's easy. Is it worth another think? If I increase the value, what would happen then? Then I've got one of my high value, low effort ideas. So really, I've either got to pump it up or chuck it. Does that sound right? Now finally, let's go into the sadomasochist zone over here. Were there any ideas that you think, this is just, no one's going to want it and it would be pretty much impossible? Pine onion. Although this lady here says it solves the Hawaiian pizza problem.
Sweet and sour sauce.
I didn't know that was such a big problem, but you know, apparently it is. So, what decision should I make here? I should run screaming from this idea because it's getting me absolutely nowhere. This is a tool that we've been using now for 10 years to help organisations to make decisions about what they'll do next. What's their strategy? What's their project? So next time you have a butcher's paper orgy and you generate 1,000 more projects, put them up on here. And the only discussion you need to have beforehand is what do we mean by value and what do we mean by effort? Now the effort's are classic. Time, money, resources. What we call cultural drag, our people will never go for it. Or structural drag, we'll never get it through our system. Do you recognise those two? And then up here, what matters to you? Profit, customer value, political influence, capacity building, leadership, awesomeness. It doesn't really matter. In my group, ones at work, we've been using this tool now for 12 years to decentralise all decision making. We've only got 5 values. We're here because this is either important, we're going to learn something, we're going to have some fun, it's going to build our capacity, or we're going to make some money. Actually, only one of those doesn't apply here, right? So guess what? Can we make decisions without meetings? Yes, we've been doing it for 10 years. This is a way of decentralising decision making. So you've empowered people to say, I will bring you a project which is high value, low effort. Would you like that to happen? Anything here you could use? Looking for a yes or a no? Very cool. If you want any more stuff, here's a website, here's the blogs, here's the Twitter feeds. Any information you want on decision making, problem solving, creativity, any of that kind of stuff, feel free, and thank you for your time.